My name is Haley. I am 28 years old and I currently live in Chicago. Thanksgiving dinner is supposed to be about family and gratitude, but at my parents' house, it was always a performance. The table was set perfectly. The turkey was golden brown. Everyone was smiling, but the air felt thick. I knew something was going to happen. My sister Jenna stood up. She looked like the perfect daughter. She tapped her fork against her wine glass. Ding, ding, ding. The room went silent. Everyone turned to look at her. She beamed with pride. Mom and Dad have made a decision, Jenna announced loudly. They are signing the house over to me. Haley gets nothing. The room erupted. My aunts clapped their hands. My uncle whistled. My cousins looked at me, waiting for the tears. They expected me to be jealous. They expected a scene. They looked at me like I was a disappointed child who didn't get a toy. But I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, completely calm. I looked across the table at my father. He was looking down at his plate. He was sweating. He knew what I knew. The cheering died down when they noticed I wasn't reacting. The silence became heavy and awkward. I spoke clearly, my voice steady. Dad, I said, should I tell them or will you? A fork dropped onto a plate with a loud clatter. My mother froze. Jenna's smile vanished instantly. They thought they had won. They thought I was the victim. But they were wrong. I knew a storm was coming, and I was the one who brought the thunder. But before I tell you how everything flipped, like and subscribe, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? My name is Haley. To understand why I sat so calmly at that Thanksgiving table while my family celebrated my exclusion, you have to understand my life. You have to understand the 28 years of silence that led up to that moment. I grew up in a nice house in the suburbs. From the outside, we looked like a perfect family. We had a green lawn. We had 2 cars in the driveway. My father wore a suit to work, and my mother baked cookies for the school bake sale. We went to church on Sundays. If you drove past our house, you would think, that is a happy family. But inside that house there were rules. They were unspoken rules, but they were as hard as stone. Rule number 1, Jenna is the star. Rule number 2, Haley is the audience. Jenna is my younger sister. She is 2 years younger than me. From the moment she was born, the spotlight shifted to her. I don't remember it happening, but I felt the cold shadow it left behind. Jenna was loud. She was charming. She had blonde curls and a smile that made adults want to give her candy. I was quieter. I had straight brown hair and serious eyes. I liked to read. I liked to draw. I didn't demand attention, so I didn't get any. My parents didn't beat me. They didn't starve me. They just didn't see me. I remember my 10th birthday. I came downstairs in the morning, excited. I had asked for a bicycle. All my friends had bicycles. I wanted to ride with them. I walked into the kitchen, smiling. Happy birthday, Haley, my mom said. She didn't stop washing the dishes. We are going to Jenna's dance recital tonight, so we will have cake quickly after dinner. There was no bike. There was a wrapped box on the table. I opened it. It was a set of new school clothes. A pair of jeans and 2 shirts. Thank you, I said. I tried not to cry. 2 months later, it was Jenna's birthday. She turned 8. My parents threw a party in the backyard. They hired a clown. They invited the whole neighborhood. And in the middle of the driveway, with a big red bow on it, was a brand new bicycle. It was pink. It had streamers on the handlebars. Jenna screamed with joy. My dad lifted her onto the seat. My mom clapped and took photos. I stood by the fence. I watched them. I felt a lump in my throat that felt like a stone. I didn't understand. Why was she good enough for a bike and I was only good enough for school clothes? Was I bad? Did I do something wrong? I asked my mom later. I was brave that night. Mom, I asked, why did Jenna get a bike and I didn't? My mom sighed. She looked annoyed. Haley, stop being jealous. Jenna needs the exercise. She is a dancer. You like to read. You don't need a bike to read. That was the answer for everything. Jenna needed things. I didn't. As we got older, it got worse. In high school, I got straight A's. I studied until midnight every night. I wanted to make them proud. I brought my report card home and put it on the fridge. That's nice, honey, my dad said without looking up from his newspaper. The next day, Jenna came home. She had a C on her math test. She started crying. My parents rushed to her. They hugged her. They told her it wasn't her fault the teacher was too hard. They hired a private tutor for her the next week. It cost $50 an hour. I asked for money for a field trip to the Science Museum. It was $20. We're a little tight right now, Haley, my dad said. Maybe next time. So I stayed at school in the library while my class went to the museum. That night, I saw the receipt for Jenna's new dance shoes on the counter. They cost $80. I learned the lesson. I learned that my needs were a burden and Jenna's wants were a necessity. I stopped asking. I stopped showing them my grades. I stopped telling them about my day. I became a ghost in my own house. I cooked my own dinner because they were often out watching Jenna perform. I washed my own clothes. I got a job at a grocery store when I was 16 so I could buy my own shoes. I built a wall around my heart. I told myself I didn't care. I told myself I was independent. But there was one person who saw me. One person who peeked over the wall. My grandma Evelyn. She was my father's mother. She was a tough woman. She had worked in a factory for 30 years. She had rough hands and sharp blue eyes. She didn't like nonsense. And she didn't like how my parents treated me. She would come over for Sunday dinner. She would watch Jenna talk about her cheerleading squad for 20 minutes. My parents would hang on Jenna's every word. Then Grandma Evelyn would cut through the noise. "Haley," she would say loudly, "how is your art class going?" The table would go silent. My parents would look annoyed that the subject had changed. "It's good, Grandma," I would say quietly. "Show me after dinner," she would command, and I would. We would sit on the porch and I would show her my sketches. She would look at them carefully. She wouldn't give me fake praise. She would point out what was good and what needed work. She treated me like a person, not a ghost. One evening, when I was 17, I was crying in the garage. My parents had just told me they couldn't afford to help me with college. They said they needed to save money for Jenna's college fund because she isn't as academic as you, Haley. She'll need a private school. I was going to have to take out huge loans. I felt crushed. Grandma Evelyn found me there. She sat on a box of old tools next to me. She didn't hug me, she just looked at me. "Stop crying," she said. "It's not fair," I sobbed. "I know it's not fair," she said. Her voice was hard but kind. "Life isn't fair, Haley. And your parents are fools. They are betting on a horse that just wants to look pretty in the parade. They are ignoring the workhorse." I wiped my eyes. "I'm just a workhorse." "You are strong," she said. "You have had to be. Jenna is weak. She has never carried a heavy thing in her life. When the storm comes, she will blow away. But you have roots. You are digging them deep right now." She grabbed my chin and made me look at her. "You are stronger than they think," she whispered. "Remember that. One day they will need you, and you will have to decide if you want to help them." I held onto those words. I packed them away in my heart. I went to college. I worked 2 jobs. I paid for my own books. I rarely went home. When I did visit, it was like stepping back into the shadows. Jenna was always the center of the universe. She dropped out of college after 1 semester because she missed home. My parents welcomed her back like a war hero. They let her live rent-free. They bought her a new car. I graduated with honors. My parents didn't come to the ceremony. They said it was too far to drive, and Jenna had a minor cold. Grandma Evelyn came. She took a bus for 4 hours. She cheered the loudest when they called my name. That was 5 years ago. Since then, I have built a life. I have a good job in Chicago. I have an apartment that I pay for. I have friends who listen to me. I am happy, but the family dynamic never changed. I was the backup plan. I was the one they called when they needed something technical fixed, or when they needed a ride from the airport at 2 a.m. Jenna was the princess. I thought I had made peace with it. I thought I could just keep my distance and be fine. But then the phone rang 6 months ago, and the real betrayal began. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was at work. My phone buzzed on my desk. It was my mother. My stomach tightened. My mother never called me during the day unless it was an emergency, or unless she wanted something. I picked up. "Hello? Haley, you need to come home this weekend," she said. Her voice was high and tight. It sounded like she was trying to keep it steady but was failing. "Why?" I asked. "Is everything okay? Is Grandma okay?" "Grandma is fine," she said quickly. It's your father and me. We need your help with something legal. It's very important." "What kind of legal thing?" I asked. I felt a prickle of suspicion on the back of my neck. "We are refinancing the house," she said. "We are getting a better rate. But because you lived here for so long, and because your name was on some old insurance papers, the bank needs you to sign a waiver. Just a formality. Please, Haley, we need to do this by Monday." It didn't make sense. I hadn't lived there in 7 years. My name was never on the deed. Why would they need my signature for a refinance? Mom, that sounds strange, I said. I don't own the house. I don't understand the technical stuff, she snapped. Then she softened her voice. Please, honey, Dad is really stressed about this. Just come for dinner. Sign the paper. It will take 5 minutes. We miss you. We miss you. Those were the magic words. The words that were supposed to make me forget 20 years of neglect. And because a small part of me still wanted their love, I agreed. Okay, I said. I'll be there Saturday. I drove down on Saturday morning. The drive took 3 hours. I listened to a podcast to stop my mind from racing. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe they really just needed a signature. Maybe they were finally including me in family business. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked the same. Jenna's car was there. It was a new SUV. I wondered how she afforded it. She worked part-time at a boutique. I walked inside. The smell of roast chicken filled the air. It was my favorite meal. My heart softened a little. They made my favorite meal. Haley, you're here. My dad came into the hallway. He hugged me. His hug felt tight, desperate. He smelled like sweat and old cologne. Hi, Dad, I said. We sat down for dinner. The conversation was normal at first. We talked about the weather. We talked about my job. Jenna talked about her new boyfriend, Tyler. She showed me her ring. It wasn't an engagement ring, just a promise ring, she said. He's going to propose soon, she whispered, winking at me. We are going to need a big house. My parents exchanged a look. A quick, nervous glance, I saw it. After dessert, my dad cleared his throat. He stood up and went to the sideboard. He pulled out a thick folder. Well, he said, trying to sound casual, since you're here, let's get this paperwork out of the way. Then we can watch a movie. He placed a stack of papers in front of me on the dining table. He also placed a pen. Where do I sign? I asked. I didn't pick up the pen. Just right here, my dad pointed to a line at the bottom of the last page. And here, and initial here. I looked at the page. It was a wall of text. Legal jargon. I turned the page back, and another. Dad, I said. I want to read it first. My dad laughed. It was a loud, fake laugh. Haley, it's standard boring bank stuff. You won't understand half of it. I didn't understand it. It's just to say you have no claim on the property so we can lower our interest rate. I still want to read it, I said. I started to read the first paragraph. My mother stood up and started clearing the dishes loudly. Clink, clatter, it was distracting. Haley, really, Jenna said, scrolling on her phone. Just sign it. Why do you always have to be so difficult? They made you dinner. I ignored her. I looked at the papers. I noticed something strange. There were sections that were blanked out. Literal white tape over numbers. Why is this covered? I asked, pointing to a section about principal amount. Oh, that, my dad said. He was sweating now. I could see beads of sweat on his forehead. The printer was acting up. We filled it in on the bank's copy. This is just the copy for you to sign. So I'm signing a blank check, I asked. I looked at him directly. No, he shouted. Then he lowered his voice. No, honey, it's just, look, we are family. Do you trust us? That question. It was a trap. If I said yes, I had to sign. If I said no, I was the bad daughter. I looked at my mother. She was wiping the table, staring at me with wide, pleading eyes. She looked terrified. I looked at Jenna. She looked bored. She didn't know what was happening. I looked at the papers again. I saw the words co-borrower and assumption of liability. I am not a lawyer, but I know what liability means. It means responsibility. It means if things go wrong, it's on me. I put the pen down. I'm sorry, Dad, I said. I can't sign this tonight. The room went dead silent. What? My dad whispered. I need to have my lawyer look at it, I said. I have a friend in Chicago who does real estate law. I'll take a copy, send it to him on Monday, and if he says it's okay, I'll sign it then. It was a lie. I didn't have a real estate lawyer friend. I just needed to get out of there. My dad's face turned red. You don't trust your own father. It's not about trust, I said calmly. It's about understanding what I'm signing. If it's just a simple refinance, my lawyer will clear it in 5 minutes. My mother started to cry. After all we've done for you, she sobbed. We fed you, we raised you. And you can't do one small favor. Mom, signing legal documents isn't a favor, I said. It's a contract. I stood up. I'm going to take this copy. No, my dad lunged forward and grabbed the papers. These are my personal financial documents. You can't take them. He held them to his chest. He was breathing hard. Okay, I said slowly. If I can't read them, I can't sign them. I grabbed my purse. I think I should leave. If you walk out that door, my dad yelled, don't expect us to help you when you need it. I almost laughed. When had they ever helped me? Goodbye, Dad. Goodbye, Mom, I said. I walked out. My heart was pounding in my chest like a hammer. I got in my car and locked the doors. As I backed out of the driveway, I saw them standing in the window, watching me. I knew then that this wasn't a refinance. I knew they were hiding something terrible, but I didn't know yet how deep the rot went. I drove back to Chicago in silence. No podcasts this time. My mind was replaying the scene over and over, the sweat on my father's face, the way my mother cried on command, the white tape over the numbers. I didn't have a lawyer friend, but I hired one the next day. I found a man named Mr. Henderson. He wasn't cheap, but I had savings. I told him what happened. I gave him my parents' names and their address. I want to know what is happening with that house, I told him, and I want to know if my name is attached to anything. It took him 3 days. I was sitting in my cubicle at work when he called. Haley, Mr. Henderson said. His voice was serious. I have the report on the property. Is it a refinance? I asked. No, he said. It is not a refinance. It's a rescue mission. He explained it to me in simple terms. My parents were broke, completely broke. They had taken out a second mortgage on the house 5 years ago, right around the time they bought Jenna her new car and renovated the kitchen. They hadn't paid that mortgage in 6 months. They are in pre-foreclosure, Mr. Henderson said. The bank is getting ready to take the house. My hand shook as I held the phone. So what was the paper they wanted me to sign? They were trying to transfer the title to you, he said. But not just the title. They were trying to add you to the loan. There is a clause called assumption of debt. If you had signed that paper, you would have become legally responsible for the entire debt, about $150,000. I felt sick. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. They wanted me to pay their debt, I whispered. It looks like they wanted to use your credit score to save the house, he said. Your credit is excellent, theirs is ruined. If you had signed, the bank would have paused the foreclosure because a solvent borrower, that's you, was now on the hook. They would have kept living there, and you would have been the one receiving the bills. I hung up the phone. I ran to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my face. My own parents. They weren't just asking for help. They were trying to trap me. They were trying to chain me to their mistakes. They were willing to ruin my financial future to save their image. And Jenna, she just wanted a big house. She didn't care how she got it. A week later, my phone rang again. It was my mother. She sounded weak. Haley, she whispered. What do you want, Mom? I asked. I was done being polite. It's your father, she said. He's sick. He went to the doctor. They found something. It's bad. My heart stopped for a second. Even after everything, he was my dad. What is it? I asked. They think it's a tumor, she cried. He needs surgery, but our insurance, it doesn't cover the specialist. We need $5,000 for the deposit. Please, Haley. I know you're mad, but this is life or death. I felt the guilt rising. Cancer, a tumor, that changed everything, didn't it? I couldn't let my dad die because I was angry about money. Okay, I said. I'll help. Which hospital is he at? What's the doctor's name? I will call them and pay the deposit directly with my credit card. There was a pause, a long silence on the other end. Mom, well, she stammered, you can't pay them directly. It's complicated. You have to send the money to our account. We have to write a check. It's a specific policy. That doesn't sound right, I said. The cold feeling came back. Give me the doctor's name. Why do you have to verify everything? She screamed. Her weak voice was gone instantly. She sounded angry now. Why can't you just give us the money? You have a good job, you have no kids, you are selfish. There is no tumor, is there? I asked. My voice was flat. He is sick with stress, she yelled. Stress that you are causing. The bank is calling every day. We are going to lose the house. So you lied about cancer to get money for the mortgage. We needed the money, she sobbed. It's the same thing. Saving the house saves your father. I hung up. I sat on my couch in my quiet apartment. I didn't cry. I was past crying. I felt something else. I felt clarity. They were drowning. They had spent their lives spoiling Jenna and ignoring reality. Now the water was over their heads. And instead of learning to swim, they were trying to climb on top of me to stay afloat. They didn't care if I drowned, as long as they stayed dry. I looked at a photo of Grandma Evelyn on my shelf. She passed away 2 years ago. I missed her. You are stronger than they think, she had said. She was right. I wasn't going to let them use me, but I wasn't going to just disappear either. They had tried to trick me. They had lied about cancer. They had treated me like a wallet with a pulse. I needed to make sure they couldn't hurt me or anyone else ever again. The next few months were a strange game of cat and mouse. I didn't block their numbers. I answered their calls, but I became very boring. When they asked for money, I said I had expenses. When they tried to guilt me, I changed the subject. "How is Jenna?" I would ask. "Oh, she is wonderful," my mom would say, forgetting her anger. "Tyler is going to propose any day now. They are looking at wedding venues, very expensive venues." I listened. I took notes. I started watching Jenna's social media. She was posting constantly. Picture of a new designer bag, treating myself, number blessed picture of my parents' house, so grateful to have a home filled with love. Big news coming soon. Number homeowner, number legacy. She posted a story on Instagram. She was walking through my parents' living room. "My parents are the best," she said to the camera. "They are making sure Tyler and I have the best start to our life. House hunting is so stressful, so we decided, why hunt when you already have the perfect castle?" I watched it 3 times. The perfect castle. They were planning to give the house to Jenna. But how? The house was in debt. The house was about to be foreclosed on. Then I realized the plan. It was so simple and so stupid. They were going to sign the deed over to Jenna. Jenna would think she was getting a free house. Tyler, her fiancé, would think he was marrying into a wealthy family with property. My parents would move into a condo or maybe the in-law suite, hiding from the debt collectors, hoping that by transferring the deed, they could confuse the bank or delay the process. Or maybe they just didn't tell Jenna about the debt. Maybe they were setting her up too. I called Mr. Henderson again. "If they transfer the deed to my sister," I asked, "what happens to the debt?" "The mortgage stays with the property," he said. "If the parents stop paying, the bank forecloses. It doesn't matter who is on the deed. If your sister takes the title, she takes the risk of losing the home immediately unless the loan is paid off." "Does she know that?" I asked. "I can't say," he said. "But usually, when people transfer deeds for $1, which is what family members do, title companies do a search. But if they do it privately, she might not know until the sheriff shows up to evict her." I thanked him. I started building my folder. I went to the county clerk's website. I downloaded the public records. Document 1, the original mortgage. Document 2, the second mortgage. Document 3, the notice of default, the first step of foreclosure. Document 4, a list of liens against the property for unpaid property taxes. I printed them all out. I put them in a crisp blue folder. It was November now. Thanksgiving was approaching. My mother texted me a week before the holiday. "Thanksgiving dinner at 4 p.m. Please come. We are having a big announcement. Try to be happy for your sister." "I'll be there," I replied. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to fight. I was going to bring the truth. I packed my bag. I put on a nice dress. I did my hair. I looked in the mirror. I didn't look like the scared little girl in the corner anymore. I looked like a woman who knew who she was. I drove to the house. The leaves were falling. The air was crisp. When I arrived, the driveway was full. My aunts and uncles were there. Tyler's parents were there. It was a full house. I walked in. The heat hit me, the noise of laughter and clinking glasses. "Haley," my Aunt Susan hugged me. "We never see you anymore." "I've been working," I said, smiling. I looked for my parents. They were in the kitchen. My dad was opening wine. He looked thinner, he looked tired, but when he saw me, he put on his fake smile. "Glad you made it," he said. He didn't hug me. He looked at my purse, as if checking to see if I had brought a checkbook. I saw Jenna. She was wearing a white dress. She looked like a bride already. She was showing her ring to everyone. Tyler was standing next to her, looking proud. He was a nice guy. He worked in it. He had no idea he was marrying into a financial sinkhole. "Dinner is served," my mom called out. We all moved to the dining room. There were 20 people. The table was extended with extra leaves. I looked for my seat. There was a place card with my name. It was at the far end near the kitchen door. The worst seat. Jenna and Tyler were in the middle, right next to Mom and Dad. I sat down. I placed my purse on the floor. I placed the blue folder on my lap under the napkin. The food was passed around: turkey, stuffing, cranberry sauce. Everyone was eating and laughing. Then the clinking started. Ding, 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 Jenna stood up. Attention everyone, she chirped. My stomach didn't tighten this time, my heart didn't race. I felt a cold, calm wash over me. This was it. The moment they had planned. The moment that was supposed to crush me, but they didn't know I had the blue folder. They didn't know that the victim they invited to dinner had become the judge, the jury, and the executioner. I took a sip of my water. I waited. Mom and Dad have made a decision, Jenna began. I touched the folder on my lap. Go ahead, I thought, say it. The drive to my parents' house usually took 3 hours, but today it felt like an eternity. The highway was gray and cold. The trees were bare. It was November in the Midwest, and everything looked like it was dying. I had the blue folder on the passenger seat next to me. I kept glancing at it. It looked so innocent. It was just a cheap plastic folder I had bought at an office supply store for $2. But inside, it held the power to destroy my family's image. It held the truth that they had been hiding for years. My stomach felt tight. I wasn't hungry, even though it was Thanksgiving. I was nervous. Not because I was afraid of them anymore, but because I knew that once I opened that folder, there was no going back. I was about to burn the bridge. I was about to become the villain in their story, so that I could be the hero in mine. I pulled into the driveway at exactly 3:55 p.m. Dinner was scheduled for 4 p.m. My parents were always obsessed with punctuality. To be early is to be on time is to be late, my father used to say. It was funny, considering he hadn't paid his mortgage on time in 6 months. The driveway was packed. My aunt and uncle's sedan was there. My cousin Mark's truck was parked on the grass, something my dad usually hated, but today he probably didn't care. And right in the center, taking up the best spot, was Jenna's car. It was the SUV my parents had leased for her. It was shiny and clean. I parked my car on the street. I didn't want to block anyone in. I wanted a quick escape route. I grabbed my purse and the blue folder. I took a deep breath. The air smelled like wood smoke and impending rain. I walked up the front path. The house looked impressive from the street. It was a big, 2-story colonial with white pillars. My mother had put a wreath on the door made of dried corn and autumn leaves. It looked like a picture from a magazine. That was their specialty, making things look perfect from the outside while everything rotted on the inside. I didn't knock. I used my key. I walked in. The heat hit me first. The house was stiflingly hot. Then the noise. The sound of 20 people talking, laughing, and clinking glasses filled the hallway. The smell of roasting turkey, sage stuffing, and sweet potatoes was overwhelming. It was the smell of my childhood, but today it smelled like a lie. Haley, you made it. It was my Aunt Linda. She came rushing out of the living room, holding a glass of white wine. Aunt Linda was my mother's sister. She was nosy, loud, and loved drama. Hi, Aunt Linda, I said, letting her hug me. She smelled like expensive perfume and Chardonnay. We were worried you wouldn't come, she whispered loudly in my ear. Your mother said you've been very distant lately. I've been working a lot, I said simply. Work, 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 she sighed, pulling back to look at me. You look tired, honey. Are you dating anyone? You know, Jenna and Tyler are looking at wedding venues. Maybe you can bring a date to the wedding. I'm happy being single right now, I said. I shifted the blue folder to my other hand, hiding it against my side. Well, don't wait too long, she warned. Eggs don't last forever. She laughed at her own joke and wandered back into the party. I walked into the kitchen. This was the nerve center. My mother was there, wearing a frantic expression and a kiss the cook apron. She was basting the turkey one last time. My father was opening bottles of wine. Jenna was sitting on a stool, doing absolutely nothing. She was holding a glass of wine and chatting with Tyler. Jenna looked beautiful. I have to admit that. She was wearing a cream-colored cashmere dress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. Her blonde hair was in perfect curls. She looked like a princess holding court. Tyler stood next to her. He was a good guy. He was tall, had kind eyes, and worked hard in it. He adored Jenna. He thought he was marrying into a stable, wealthy family. He had no idea he was standing on a trapdoor. Haley, my dad said. He didn't smile. He just nodded. You're here. Hello, Dad, I said. He looked at my purse. He looked at the folder. His eyes narrowed for a fraction of a second. He recognized the bank logo on the corner of the paper sticking out. I saw his throat bob as he swallowed. What's that? He asked, pointing to the folder. Just some work stuff, I lied. I have to review some things later. On Thanksgiving, Jenna laughed. She swirled her wine. God, Haley, you are such a bore. Can't you take a break for one day? Some of us have to work to pay for things, Jenna, I said calmly. Okay, my mom interjected. She sensed the tension immediately. Let's not fight. It's Thanksgiving. We have so much to be thankful for today, especially today. She exchanged a secret, excited look with Jenna. Jenna giggled. Go find a seat, Haley, my mom said, shooing me out of the kitchen. We are serving in 5 minutes. I walked into the dining room. The table was magnificent. My mother had pulled out all the stops. The good china with the gold rim was out. There were crystal water glasses. There were centerpieces made of fresh flowers. There were name cards at every seat, written in my mother's fancy cursive script. I walked around the table looking for my name. Dad was at the head. Mom was at the foot. Jenna was to Dad's right, the place of honor. Tyler was next to her. Then Aunt Linda, Uncle Bob, Cousin Mark, and Tyler's parents. I found my card. It was at the very far end of the table, practically in the hallway. I was seated next to the kitchen door and across from Great Aunt Clara, who was in a wheelchair and mostly deaf. It was a subtle insult. You are here, but you are not part of the core group. I sat down. I placed my purse on the floor. I placed the blue folder on my lap, underneath the white linen napkin. I smoothed the napkin over it. It felt solid and heavy on my legs. The room filled up. Everyone took their seats. There was the sound of chairs scraping, people laughing, the clinking of silverware. This looks delicious, Susan, Tyler's mom shouted to my mother. Oh, it was nothing, my mom said modestly. Just a little family recipe. My father stood up. He tapped his knife against his wine glass. Ding, ding, ding. The sound cut through the chatter. The room went silent. Everyone turned to look at him. He stood tall, puffing out his chest. He loved this. He loved being the patriarch, the provider, the generous king. Welcome, everyone, he began. His voice was deep and theatrical. It warms my heart to see this table full. Family is the most important thing in the world. It is our rock, it is our legacy. He paused to let that sink in. I watched him closely. I saw the sweat on his upper lip. I saw the slight tremor in his hand holding the glass. He was terrified. He was playing a role for his life. This year has been a special year, he continued. We have seen our beautiful Jenna get engaged to a wonderful man, Tyler. Everyone clapped. Tyler blushed. Jenna beamed. And, my dad said, raising his voice over the applause, we want to make sure that their life together starts on the right foot. We want to ensure that the Miller legacy is passed down. He looked down at Jenna. He nodded. This was the cue. Jenna stood up. She didn't just stand, she posed. She placed one hand on Tyler's shoulder and held her wine glass with the other. Thank you, Daddy, she said. Her voice was sickeningly sweet. Mom and Dad have been talking to Tyler and me for a few weeks. We have been so stressed about finding a house. You all know how the market is, it's crazy. She laughed a little tinkling laugh. But Mom and Dad, she continued, her eyes widening with feigned amazement, have decided to do something incredible. Something so generous, I still can't believe it. She took a deep breath. She looked around the room, making eye contact with everyone. When her eyes landed on me, her smile sharpened. It wasn't a smile of joy, it was a smile of victory. Mom and Dad are signing this house over to me, she announced. Tyler and I are going to move in next month. This is going to be our home. For a split second, the room was quiet. It was a huge announcement. This house was worth $500,000, or at least it used to be. Then Jenna added the knife. And, she said, her voice getting a little louder, a little harder. Since Haley has her big career in the city, and since she's always been so independent, Mom and Dad decided that she doesn't need the help, so the house is strictly mine. Haley gets nothing. She said it with pride. She said it like I was being punished for being responsible. The silence broke. Oh my God, Cousin Mark yelled. That's awesome, Jenna. Congratulations, Aunt Linda shrieked. A homeowner. That is so generous, Robert, Uncle Bob said, raising his glass to my dad. A true father takes care of his own. My mother was clapping her hands together, looking at Jenna with tears in her eyes. My baby, she mouthed. My baby is going to be safe. Safe, that was the irony. I sat there, I didn't move. I didn't clap, I didn't frown, I just watched them. It was like watching a play where the actors didn't know the scenery was on fire. People started to look at me. They noticed I wasn't cheering. Haley, Aunt Linda said, nudging me with her elbow. Aren't you happy for your sister? Don't be sour just because you didn't get a house. Yeah, Haley, Cousin Mark laughed. Don't be a sore loser. I looked at my father. He was watching me. His smile was tight. He was waiting for me to cause a scene. He was waiting for me to cry or storm out. If I stormed out, he won. If I stormed out, I was the jealous, ungrateful daughter, and he was the victim. But I wasn't going to storm out. I picked up my water glass. I took a slow sip. The water was cool. It calmed me. I put the glass down. Dad, I said. I didn't shout. I spoke in a normal, conversational volume. But because the room was starting to quiet down to see my reaction, my voice carried. Dad, I said again. He stared at me. What, Haley? Should I tell them? I asked. Or will you? The question hung in the air. Tell us what? Jenna snapped. She looked annoyed that I was interrupting her moment. That you're jealous, we already know. I ignored her. I kept my eyes locked on my father. Dad, I said. Should I tell them about the gift? The real gift? My father's face went pale. The redness drained out of him like water from a sink. His hand shook so bad that a splash of wine spilled onto the white tablecloth. It looked like a drop of blood. Haley, he warned. His voice was a low growl. Don't do this, not today. Do what? Tyler asked. He looked between me and my father. He sensed the danger. What is she talking about, Robert? Nothing, my mom shrieked. Her voice was too high. She's just being dramatic. Ignore her, let's eat. No, I said. I reached under the napkin. I pulled out the blue folder. I placed it on the table. The plastic made a slap sound against the wood. I think we should talk about exactly what Jenna is inheriting, I said. The sight of the blue folder changed the energy in the room instantly. It was like a weapon had been placed on the dinner table. My father stood up abruptly. His chair scraped loudly against the floor. That is enough, he shouted. This is my house. You will not disrespect me at my table. Is it your house, Dad? I asked calmly. I didn't stand up. I stayed seated. It made me look more in control. According to the county records, the bank actually owns about 90% of it right now. And they are coming for the rest. Lies, my mother screamed. She stood up too. She is lying. She is just jealous because we love Jenna more. The room gasped. My mother had never said it out loud before. We love Jenna more. She covered her mouth instantly, realizing what she had said. But the words were out. They floated in the air, ugly and undeniable. I felt a sting in my chest, but I pushed it down. I knew that already. Hearing it just confirmed I was doing the right thing. I know you do, Mom, I said softly. That's why it's so shocking that you are trying to destroy her. I opened the folder. I took out the first document. I held it up. This, I said, projecting my voice to the whole table, is a notice of default from First National Bank. It is dated October 15th. I looked at Tyler. Tyler, I said, you work with data. You know what a default notice is, right? Tyler looked pale. He nodded slowly. It means the mortgage hasn't been paid. Correct, I said. For 6 months to be exact. My parents haven't paid a single dime toward the mortgage on this house in half a year. That's impossible, Jenna said. She looked at Dad. Daddy, you said the house was paid off. You said you owned it free and clear. My father stammered. He wiped his forehead with a napkin. Cash flow problems, temporary, business has been slow, we were going to catch up. With what money, Dad? I asked. The money you don't have. I pulled out the second document. This is the second mortgage, I announced. Taken out 5 years ago, $80,000 at an adjustable rate. Currently, the interest rate is over 8%. This loan is also in default. The guests were whispering now. 80,000, foreclosure, I thought they were rich. I turned to Jenna. She looked like she was going to throw up. She had sunk into her chair. Jenna, I said. They aren't giving you a house, they are giving you a debt. I flipped the page. I spoke to a lawyer, I continued. If you sign that deed today, if you put your name on that title, you are accepting the asset and the liens attached to it. The bank will come after you, they will foreclose on you. You and Tyler will be evicted, and your credit score, it will be destroyed before you even cut the wedding cake. Jenna stared at our parents. Is this true? Her voice shook. Mom, did you know this? My mother was crying now. Big, ugly sobs. We were trying to save it. If we transferred it to you, the bank would have to restart the process. It would give us time. We could have lived here for another year. We would have figured it out. You were using me as a shield, Jenna whispered. The betrayal was dawning on her. You were going to let me move in, set up a nursery, and wait for the sheriff to kick me out. We would never let that happen, my dad yelled. I am a businessman, I make deals. You are a fraud, Dad, I said. I looked at the table. 6 months ago, I told everyone. They tried to do this to me first. My Aunt Susan dropped her fork. Clatter. They called me home, I said. They told me it was a refinance. They tried to get me to sign a paper that would have made me a co-borrower. They wanted to attach my income and my credit to this sinking ship. They wanted me to pay their bills while they lived here for free. I looked at my mother. And when I refused, I said, my voice trembling slightly with the memory, Mom told me Dad had a tumor. She lied about cancer to try and get $5,000 from me. The room went dead silent. That was the line. Money troubles were one thing, lying about cancer was another. Susan, Aunt Linda stood up. She looked at her sister with disgust. You told me Robert was sick. I prayed for him. You lied. My mother put her head on the table and wailed. She didn't deny it. They tried to trap me, I said. I escaped. So they moved on to the next available victim. Jenna, I looked at my sister. I'm sorry I had to do this in front of everyone, I said to her. But if I told you in private, you would have believed them. You would have thought I was just jealous. You needed to see the papers. Jenna looked at the papers on the table. She picked up the foreclosure notice. She read the words notice of sale. She looked at Tyler. Tyler was standing up. He looked furious. You people are sick, Tyler said. He looked at my father. I looked up to you. I thought you were a success. You're just a con artist. Now, son, wait a minute. My dad tried to use his charming voice, but it cracked. These are just numbers. Business is complicated. Family isn't complicated, Tyler shouted. You don't ruin your children to save your ego. Suddenly, a voice cut through the chaos. It was frail but sharp. I told you, Robert. We all turned. It was great Aunt Clara. She was sitting in her wheelchair at the end of the table. She had been silent for years at family gatherings. We all thought she was senile, but her eyes were clear. She pointed a shaking finger at my father. Evelyn told me, Clara said. Before she died, your mother told me. She said, Robert is spending money he doesn't have. He is building a castle on sand. And one day, he will try to use those girls as sandbags to stop the water. My father looked like he had been slapped. Evelyn knew, Clara said. She looked at me. And she told me, watch out for Haley. She's the only one with a backbone. She's the only one who can stop him. Clara smiled at me. It was a gummy, old lady smile, but it was the most beautiful thing I had ever seen. You did good, girl, Clara said. You stopped him. The validation hit me hard. I felt tears prick my eyes. I wasn't the villain. Grandma Evelyn had seen this coming and she had prepared me. Get out, my father hissed at me. He was shaking with rage. Get out of my house. You are disowned. You are dead to me. I'm not going anywhere, Dad, I said. Not yet, because I invited someone else to dinner. Who? He asked. Who did you invite? As if on cue, there was a heavy, authoritative knock at the front door. Knock, knock, knock. The sound echoed through the silent house. It sounded like a gavel hitting a judge's bench. Who is that? My mother whispered, lifting her tear-stained face. The consequences, I said. The knocking continued. It was persistent, not polite. It was the kind of knock that demanded an answer. My Uncle Bob, who had been sitting in stunned silence, finally stood up. I'll get it, he muttered. He looked relieved to have a reason to leave the table. We all sat there frozen. My father was breathing heavily, his face a mask of red fury. My mother was clutching her napkin like a lifeline. Jenna was staring at the foreclosure notice in her hand, reading the same line over and over again. We heard the front door open. We heard low voices. Is Robert Miller here? A man's voice asked. It was deep and professional. Yes, he's in the dining room, Uncle Bob said. Footsteps clicked on the hardwood floor. 2 men walked into the dining room. They were wearing dark suits. One held a briefcase. The other held a clipboard. They looked like undertakers for a funeral no one wanted to attend. Robert Miller. Susan Miller, the man with the briefcase asked. My father stood up slowly. He looked small. The bravado was gone. I am Robert, he said. I am Agent Reynolds from the First National Bank Fraud Investigation Unit, the man said. He flashed a badge. And this is Mr. Klein, a representative from the County Sheriff's Civil Division. A gasp went around the room. The word sheriff hung in the air. We are here regarding the property at 142 Maple Drive, Agent Reynolds said. He didn't look at the guests. He was focused solely on my parents. We received credible information that there was an intent to transfer the deed of this property today to a third party, specifically a family member, in order to defraud the bank and evade the active foreclosure proceedings. My father looked at me. His eyes were wide with shock. He hadn't expected this. He expected a fight, maybe some yelling. He didn't expect the authorities. You called them, he whispered. I sent the email yesterday, I said calmly. I attached the public records. I told them you were planning a fraudulent transfer. You turned in your own father, Aunt Linda gasped. She looked horrified. Haley, that is a sin. It is a crime to defraud a bank, Aunt Linda, I said. And it is a crime to make my sister an accessory to fraud. If Jenna had signed those papers, she could have been liable. She could have faced fines. Maybe even jail time if they thought she was in on it. I looked at the agent. Did she sign anything? I asked him. We were monitoring the title office online, the agent said. Nothing has been filed yet. We are here to serve a cease and desist on any transfer and to serve the final eviction notice. He handed a thick envelope to my father. You have 30 days to vacate the premises, the agent said. The property is now under the control of the bank's asset management team. My mother let out a scream. It wasn't a word. It was just a raw sound of despair. She collapsed onto the floor, her fancy dress bunching up around her. No, this is my home. My babies grew up here, she sobbed. Get up, Susan, my father hissed. He was trying to maintain dignity, but it was too late. Don't make a scene. Make a scene? Tyler's mother stood up. She was a quiet woman, but she looked furious. You invited us here to celebrate a wedding gift, and it turns out you are being evicted. You were going to let my son move into a foreclosed house. We would have fixed it, my father yelled. I just needed time if Haley hadn't meddled. Stop blaming her, Tyler shouted. He slammed his hand on the table. The silverware jumped. Tyler walked over to Jenna. He looked down at her. She was still sitting there, crying silently. Jenna, he said, did you know? I told you I didn't, she wept. I thought they were rich. I thought they loved us. You thought they loved you because they gave you things, Tyler said. He shook his head. And you loved them because they gave you things. You're all the same. It's all about the show. He took a ring box out of his pocket. He placed it on the table next to the blue folder. I can't do this, Tyler said. I can't marry into a family of liars. And Jenna, you need to grow up. You need to stop playing princess. Tyler, please, Jenna grabbed his arm. Don't leave me, I have nothing now. Exactly, Tyler said. He pulled his arm away. You have nothing, and I don't think you know who you are without this house and your parents' money. He walked out. He didn't look back. The sound of the front door closing was final. The guests started to move. It was a stampede. No one wanted to be associated with this anymore. We have to go, Aunt Linda said, grabbing her purse. Good luck, Robert, Uncle Bob muttered, not looking him in the eye. I can't believe this, Cousin Mark said, shaking his head as he walked past me. He looked at me with fear. You're brutal, Haley. I'm honest, Mark, I said. Within 5 minutes, the house was empty of guests. The agents left after getting my father's signature. It was just the four of us. The nuclear family, the survivors of the blast. My mother was still on the floor. My father was pouring himself a glass of wine with a shaking hand. Jenna was staring at the engagement ring Tyler had left behind, and I was sitting there calm. I felt a strange sense of peace. The secret was out. The poison had been drained. My father downed the wine in one gulp. He turned to me. His face was a mixture of hatred and defeat. Are you happy? He asked. You destroyed this family. You humiliated us. I didn't destroy the family, Dad, I said. I just turned on the lights. You were the one who destroyed it with lies and debt. We did it for you, my mother wailed from the floor. We wanted you girls to have a good life. We wanted you to be proud of us. I would have been proud if you were honest, I said. I would have been proud if we lived in a small apartment and you paid your bills. I didn't need a mansion. I needed parents. I looked at Jenna. She hadn't moved. She looked broken. I stood up and walked over to her. Jenna, I said softly. She flinched. Go away, you ruined my life. I saved your life, I corrected her. Tyler was right. You didn't know who you were. You were just the girl who gets things. Now you have a chance to be someone real. I have nowhere to go, she whispered. Tyler is gone. Mom and Dad are being kicked out. I can't afford an apartment. I have no savings. I spent it all on the wedding deposit. You have a job, I said. It's part-time, but it's a start. You can get more hours. I can't live on that, she cried. I need help. She looked at our parents. They couldn't help her. They were drowning. She looked at me. Haley, she said, can I stay with you? It was the moment of truth. The moment Grandma Evelyn had warned me about. They will need you, and you will have to decide. I looked at her. She was my sister. I loved her. But if I let her move in, I would become the new crutch. I would become the new parent. She would never learn to stand on her own. No, I said. Jenna's eyes widened. What? But you have a spare room, you have money. I do, I said. But if you come with me, you will just replace Dad with me. You will expect me to fix everything. And I won't do that to you. I reached into my purse. I pulled out a business card. It wasn't for a lawyer. It was for a women's shelter and job placement agency in the city. I will help you, I said. I will help you rewrite your resume. I will help you find a cheap studio apartment. I will help you budget, but I will not carry you. I put the card in her hand. This is your chance, Jenna, I said. Sink or swim. I think you can swim, but you have to jump in the water first. She looked at the card. She looked at me. For the first time, I saw a spark of anger in her eyes. Good. Anger was better than helplessness. Anger was fuel. I turned to my parents. I'm leaving now, I said. I won't be back. Don't bother, my father spat. You are no daughter of mine. That's fine, I said, because you were never really a father to me. You were just a banker who made bad investments. I picked up my purse. I left the blue folder on the table, a souvenir of the truth. I walked out the front door. The rain had started. It was a cold, cleansing rain. I walked to my car. I got in. I didn't look back at the house. I drove home. The next few months were chaotic. My parents were evicted. It was in the local paper. Prominent family loses home in foreclosure scandal. They moved to a different state to hide their shame. They don't call me. Jenna struggled. She called me a few times, crying. She slept on a friend's couch for a while, but she didn't call me for money. She called for advice. How do I set up a utility bill? She asked once. How do I cook chicken without drying it out? She asked another time. She got a second job. She rented a tiny studio apartment. It wasn't a castle. It had a leaky faucet and a view of a brick wall, but she paid for it. Last week she sent me a picture. It was a selfie of her standing in her tiny kitchen, holding a burnt lasagna. She was smiling, a real smile, not a pageant smile. It's terrible, the caption read. But I made it. I smiled. She was swimming. I am still in Chicago. I am still working. But the heaviness is gone. The shadow I lived in for 28 years has lifted. I realized that cutting them off wasn't an act of cruelty. It was an act of surgery. I cut out the rot so the healthy tissue could survive. I still miss the idea of a family. I miss the Thanksgiving I never had. But I have built my own family now. I have friends who show up. I have a life that is honest. And I have myself. And as Grandma Evelyn said, that is enough. So that's my story. I told you it wasn't a fairy tale. But in a way, maybe it is. Because the dragon was defeated and the princess saved herself. I know how hard it is to be the one who speaks up. I know the guilt. I know the fear of being called ungrateful or difficult. But I want to tell you something important. If you are sitting at a table where you have to shrink yourself to fit in, stand up. If you are holding a secret that is eating you alive to protect people who wouldn't protect you, let it out. If you are the invisible child, make them see you. You are not a prop in someone else's play. You are the main character of your own life. I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to make a choice between your family and your integrity? Have you ever been the one to break the cycle of lies? Tell me in the comments below. I read every single one. Your stories give me strength, just like I hope my story gave you some. And if you believe that truth is stronger than fear, please hit that subscribe button. Join our community. We are building a place for the truth tellers, the survivors, and the strong. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who needs to know that it's okay to walk away. Thank you for listening. Stay strong, stay honest, and remember, you are stronger than they think.